Today's video is sponsored in part by Collector Legion. Check out collectorlegion.com for all your MTG needs and more. Hey everyone, welcome back to another round of Tuesday Night Legacy. Tonight we're going to do things a little differently for you. We're just going to get straight into the action. It's 4-color control versus 4-color control. Let's do it. As 4-color control becomes more and more prominent in the meta, it becomes more prominent at the store as well. So much so that we have two players here playing the exact same deck against each other, the 4-color control deck. We will see a lot of back and forth, and basically the win condition of this deck is either beats by Uro or a huge 4th Eorlingas towards the end of the game. So let's see who will take it in this grind fest. Let's go. Jaimie is on the play here, starting with a Flooded Strand. Pretty easy. Trying to find, the Tropical Island makes sense. Want to set up for a potential Uro in a couple turns here. Have the Ponder ready. So a Ponder from Jaimie. Putting a card back. Keeping him on top. Drawing, and just a pass from Fred with the Flooded Strand in play. Another Flooded Strand. Not a ton happening at the beginning of the game here. Both players basically wanting to negate whatever the other player is going to do first. So it's just a lot of reaction here. So we may see Jaimie try to pull the trigger here on something. A Brainstorm. Just a lot of cantripping. Fred doesn't really care about that. It's not actually any relevant spell, just kind of hand sculpting. And if Jaimie has a fetch land here, then he can send away 2 cards that he is not super eager to see. But that is not the case. We see a Life from the Loam. Life from the Loam, of course, pulling back all of those lands. Just pulling back the 2 Flooded Strands, or the 2 fetch lands. Setting up Jaimie for success, never missing a land drop. Finally, we see Fred for his first spell of the game, pulls the trigger on a Ponder on turn 3. We see a 1 ring in his hand. Double fetch here. A Tundra and a Tropical Island. Maybe he's also going to Life from the Loam. There it is. We are seeing the mirror match to the fullest degree. The only difference so far is that Jaimie has played a Brainstorm. Other than that, both players have taken identical actions. Just realized the mic was a little bit away from me. Hopefully this sounds a little bit better. We see Jaimie get that 1 ring into play. We see a Force of Will right back. Fred decides whatever else is in his hand is still important. Maybe he didn't have a second Force of Will. So the 1 ring will resolve on Jaimie's side of the board. I'm sure everybody is familiar with this card by now, especially as of late. Getting to have protection from everything for a turn, basically negating anybody's next turn as far as trying to win. And then this card just sits around and draws you a million cards. Pairs very well with Voltaic and Manifold Key. We see an Uro come into play. Uro drawing a couple extra cards here. No, not a couple extra cards. 1 extra card, as is the ability on the card. And then Jaimie gets to drop one of those extra lands into play. And puts a Delighted Halfling onto the field. So slightly different lists. I don't believe that Fred runs any Delighted Halflings. And we see a Prismatic Ending for 4. A second Force of Will is going to stop that from happening. And Swords to Plowshares is going to deal with that Delighted Halfling. Taking some damage for having the 1 ring in play. Yeah, that's the drawback, is that you take damage equal to the number of burden counters on it at the beginning of your upkeep, once per turn. This can be negated by playing another copy of the 1 ring and replacing the one that has too many burden counters on it. Jaimie fetching up here, getting more cards out of his deck, plays a Caracas and goes hard for the 4th Eorlingas. So, fourth Eorlingas is the newest win condition from these control decks, putting X22s into play, -2 from whatever you pay. So, Jaimie paid 6, so he gets 4 dudes and becomes the Monarch. Fred drawing 3 cards off of the One Ring on his turn. Sees a Brainstorm here. Probably going to fire that off. Trying to decide, I feel like Fred's only way out here is probably a Terminus, but it doesn't look like he runs Terminus in this list. So just putting, oh, he's got Engineered Explosives. That'll deal with all of those tokens. So at any time, Fred can pay 2 to destroy each non-land permanent that has 0 or converted mana cost 0. Since he did not pay any CMC into it, it did not come in with any counters. And we're going to try for that Prismatic Ending play again. That's going to get rid of the One Ring. And Jaimie will untap. At this point, I'm sure that Jaimie has at least one other copy of the One Ring in his hand. Looks like Fred runs 3 here. Teferi Time Raveler. A very good card. It's a card that says, you can't play Magic the same way I play Magic. And Fred does not like that, uses a Force of Negation to exile it from the game. Jaimie tries to present lethal, and Fred pops that Engineered Explosives to make sure he doesn't lose on the spot, but we see an Uro coming in here. I think this is cast from the yard. And a Ponder. And a Wasteland. So just a ton of lands in play. Both players pretty much full grip, taking multiple actions per turn. Ooh-wee! Fred takes 3 from the burden counters and then decides to draw 4 cards. So this is basically Fred's last turn here. I'm not sure what else he's going to be able to do. We see a Caracas. That'll take care of Uro, but we need to get rid of this One Ring. Ooh, Teferi is going to return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand, which will get rid of the One Ring, playing his own Uro. Dropping a land into play and still having too many cards, having to force to discard. Oh, the Wasteland activation for Jaimie. And Fred activating that Caracas to send Uro back to hand. Comet Stellar Pup coming into play here. Comet doing all sorts of funny things. Everybody's favorite RNG Planeswalker. Oh, and a Minsk and Boo. So I think that's probably going to wrap it up here. So with a 6 rolled, Comet is going to add some more, or he gets additional activations, Planeswalker activations. Comet being able to create squirrels and return cards with mana value 2 or less to the graveyard to the hand, or just burn out players, creature or player. Comet can kill himself with that 4/5 ability because it's a -2, but you have to get pretty unlucky several times in a row. We are into game 2 here. We see a Swords of Plowshares for a Delighted Halfling, and then a Brainstorm from Jaimie after a Ponder from Fred. Fred just going and getting a land off of this Misty Rainforest, grabbing a Tropical Island, very on theme. 3 mana gets an Uro. Everybody's favorite 3 mana play. These games are just so grindy. This is the definition of grind. When it's a control versus a control deck, I guess it becomes mid-range. There is Uro on the other side of the board. Everybody's got an Uro in the yard now. I'm not sure if either of these players brought in any graveyard hate. I'm not sure. Not being a control player myself, I'm not sure if that's where he wants to be. I'm looking at Fred's sideboard. Maybe a Flusterstorm, Force of Negation, Carpet of Flowers, Hydroblast? That's red spells, no. Not doing that. Well, there's a... Pitching a Hydroblast off of Force of Will. Counter target red. I guess it destroys Minskin and it destroys Comet. We haven't seen much red from Fred. So I guess Hydroblast was the right thing to bring in. Red Elemental Blast and Pyroblast probably. So just a lot of one-for-ones. You want to make sure that you have hyper-efficient answers to anything that your opponent is doing. If you can gain more advantage than them for the same amount of mana, then theoretically you should be getting more stuff. Just like having a One Ring in play when your opponent doesn't is a lot of advantage. 4 mana is going to get Uro from the yard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards exiled. Decides to leave Force of Will instead of Swords of Plowshares in the yard. And Uro is immediately going to catch a Swords of Plowshares before his activation can resolve, or his trigger can resolve, rather. We see Fred go all the way up to 28 here. Yeah, gaining 6. And then another 3. Taking some damage from the One Ring. Jaimie deploying his own Uro from the yard. What do we got there? Was that some sort of blast in Fred's hand? Oh no, that's an Unholy Heat. Dang, that's a good one too. Although, I don't believe he had Delirium. You know what? No, I think that was just a Pyroblast. I'm looking at the card. It doesn't look like it says Unholy Heat. So it just destroys it, send it back to the yard. Delighted Halfling. After a prismatic ending for the last Delighted Halfling. Drawing a ton of cards. Taking a ton of damage. Fred pretty much burning through the original buffer that Jaimie gave him off of the swords of his Uro. 4th Eorlingas. And for a lot, I guess that was like 5. And Jaimie said, no thanks. And we moved into game 3. Jaimie on the play, 16 minutes left on the board. 16 and a half. Of course, this early game, got to start with some card selection. Do a ponder here. Keep the cards on top. Pass to Fred. Bam. Just plays that Misty. Pass turn. Another ponder. In response to said ponder, we're going to see a volcanic island. Will you brainstorm in response? Oh, hot dog. Pyroblast. Fred says, no, thank you. You cannot draw or have more card selection than you already do. So Jaimie just gets to play his Delighted Halfling and pass his turn. A brainstorm for Fred on his turn. It's going to see a ponder, and that's a shuffle. So this was kind of exactly like a fetch land, except instead you have to still draw a card. Oh, so I guess it's better than a fetch land. You still get to get rid of 2 of those cards off the top with the shuffle, and then you get to draw a free card. A fresh card. Sculpting your hand ever so perfectly. A Life from the Loam for Jaimie to get back some fetch lands that have been deployed already this game. Fred thinks about it quite a bit and then just plays a forest and passes. With Jaimie at 18, I do not believe Uro has been played yet. We see the One Ring come into play. And a Lorien Revealed. One of the best cards printed out of Lord of the Rings. That's probably an overstatement. But it is a fantastic blue card at common, since it does everything you want it to. Early game, finds you land if you don't have land. Late game, draws you cards if you have too much land. Card is always good. Fred gets his own One Ring, then passes turn. Jaimie wants to draw some cards. And we see a prismatic ending. Force of Will is going to save the One Ring. And Jaimie passes it back, doesn't have anything else to do. And Uro deployed on Fred's side. Just coming out of hand, so it goes to yard. Playing Boseiju. I guess that makes sense. I don't think there's a ton of artifacts or enchantments that Fred is really worried about on Jaimie's side. Boseiju doesn't work on the One Ring anyway, since it's a destroy effect. With the One Ring being indestructible, pretty much the only way that these guys are getting rid of that card is with the prismatic endings. Oh, I didn't see that Fred does run 2 Supreme Verdicts. Hasn't come up yet, though. A Swords for the Delighted Halfling. Gain just the smallest amount of life and passes it back. Jaimie gets to draw 3 cards off of the One Ring after taking 2 damage. 5 mana in play. It's decent. Just 1 short of Fred's 6. Although Fred was the one that deployed Uro. So I guess they are even on land drops since Jaimie went first. Here's a 4th. 4th Eorlingas for 3. It's going to get 3 boys. Turn it 6 sideways and gain the Monarch. Always good. I do like that the creatures do not gain that second ability. It's just kind of like a tagged ability in play. Not quite an emblem. So even if you kill those creatures, if you had another creature in play and it dealt combat damage, you would still become the Monarch. Obviously, the Knights just make it much easier to become Monarch, since they have Trample and Haste. Fred going down to 8 here. Off of Fetch Land, Misty Rainforest. Paying a lot of mana to get Uro back in play. And Endurance. So Endurance, yeah, it doesn't quite work the way you want it to. Since Fred had priority, he was already casting the spell. Not going to be able to bounce Uro or tuck Uro. So basically just got rid of the rest of Fred's yard. And then a Boseiju to destroy Caracas. A pretty good move. I forgot that it can destroy non-basic lands, yeah. Ooh, a Mystic Sanctuary is going to put 4th Eorlingas back on top of the library. And another 4th Eorlingas out of the hand. We're going to draw some cards in response to this Force of Will out of Fred's hand. Does not see any kind of counter magic. Jaimie's just got a hand packed full of stuff. I don't know how many 4ths he runs. Definitely has the one that he obviously put on top of the library. I'm not sure if he has another one. And then we're drawing another card. I guess he passed. Oh, discarding a 1 ring. Okay. Taking a bunch of damage. Greatness at any cost, says both players who aren't playing black. We see Uro attack, gain 3 life, offsetting most of that ring damage. Declare blocks with one of the many soldiers, or their knights, I guess. You go triple blocks here, but that's probably not right. Because if Fred had any kind of instant speed removal, then it just feels really bad. You lose your entire board. Untapping, losing a bunch of life to your ring that deals 4 to you. Jaimie all in on this ring plan, or 4th Eorlingas plan. He's got the swords for the swords, and then there's a Pyroblast. And it looks like Jaimie is going for it, drawing 5 cards, hoping to find another force. And does not. Rough stuff. So that might be it. Jaimie's at 6. He's going to take 5 damage from the 1 ring next turn. He's discarding down to hand size. He hasn't found a land off of the top 9 cards. All right, Fred taking 4 damage. And there's a prismatic ending, and a swing from Uro is going to wrap up that game. Fred takes it 2-1. Thanks as always for watching. If you want the deck lists, they should be in the description, or at least an approximate list is going to be in the description of this video. Thanks as always to Spellhold Games and Collector Legion for letting us record in their play space. And that's going to do it for us. As always, I am Eugene, and this is Tuesday Night Legacy. We'll see you next time.